It's a cracking day today. Beautiful sunshine. The odd cloud, in fact I'll show you. Just perfect, because when a cloud comes over, it just gives you a moment of coolness, which is marvellous. Right, well, I cracked that bed the other day, and the day I put the leaks in, well, it rained all night. Absolutely fantastic timing. So that's all coming on nicely. So I think today I'm going to be planting out. I've got quite a few beds to get going. So I'll have a look in the polytunnel, see what needs doing. I'm going to weed as I plant, that way I can solve a few of these weeding problems. This one's the worst. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 including this one. And then I've got the bed way over behind the black currants, which is going to need weeding too. So let's have a look inside the polytunnel, see what's ready to roll. Well, I know I want to get those tagetes along the side of the hedge, because that was the purpose I grew them, so they're looking ready. Wow, my runner beans are ready. There's no doubt about it. So they may get done today. We'll see how we go. Squashes and courgettes, not yet. Just not warm enough yet for them. These are cucumbers. But we've got squash there. We've got some coriander there, which is not really moved on enough. Lettuce can go out for sure in a few spaces. That's a beauty, that one. In fact, let's have a look at these. That one's a nice one as well. I'm sort of torn as to whether to keep some of my lettuce in here, because I'm going to be putting my tomatoes in the bottom, and a few lettuce in front will work out well. So I think what I'll do is just keep a dozen of these for putting in the front here. So they're not going out. This is more squash and pumpkins. What have we got at the back here? That's all rocket. And at the end, we've got some more coriander. So I could put some rocket out. And we've got my kale, that's Toscana and Ursa. So there's a few there that could go out. They're all spare celeriac, and they're sprouts. Down here I've got the cabbage, so the cabbage has got to go. So I think at the moment I'm looking at a couple of lettuce, some cabbage, the tagetes, and my parsnips have all come along nicely. There's one dud in there, but everything else is doing well, and as soon as they start growing on a bit I'll clip those. But I'd like to get this bed relatively empty, because I want to start putting my tomatoes in here. Any sign on the carrots? Oh yeah, we've got a carrot there, so that's good. We've got one germination. I think I'd probably need to keep this a little bit more moist, so I'll give that a bit of a water. I don't think I've got anything in my cans at the moment. And then these are tomatoes for someone else, and my celeriac, which I'm growing on. I'm going to keep growing them on for a while. So actually only cabbage, tagetes, and a couple of lettuce to start with. So let's have a look. The cabbage is low growing, it's Greyhound, so I think I'm going to keep that fairly low. I'll leave these tall hoops for the kale, I think, because they tend to get a bit higher. So maybe I put my tagetes in there and some cabbage in front, tagetes in there, same in there, and same in there, just a row at the back. And I'll open this one up and give it a bit of a weed. That way it's ready for whatever's coming next. Okay. Oh, and of course I took all that weed out of my raspberries and just left it to wilt and die. I can see where there's a few that I didn't manage to uproot. but I'm going to look at whether I can put some compost on that. Maybe today, we'll see. This part of the year can feel so leisurely. It's really enjoyable, and you're just planting out. As long as you don't take too much notice of the grass, you're okay. So it looks like I've got a bit of pruning to do over there as well. So I think I'll just hook all this back whilst I clear the bed. And I've got a little bit of bindweed in here. It's just where I've got some root that had broken off. So that's not too bad. A couple of bit of grassy weeds. There's a small dock there. And I just get through this and remove it, and I should be good to go in this bed. There's another bit here. Let's get down and see how much of a root we've got on this bindweed. There we are. So it's good to get that out, and it's a good sign that there's not an awful lot more in here. What we got here? It's an old cabbage seedling by the looks of it. Take him out. There we are. This bed is good to go. I just need to clip some of these brambles off, I think, and give it a bit of a rake. There's one or two stinging nettles here as well. Right, let's get in here, get rid of these. Once these brambles get going, they grow so quickly. If we can keep them under control, then it just saves me having net problems, which is the bulk of the issues I get from them. I find that these brambles never fruit very much. It's probably because I'm attacking them on a relatively regular basis. But even the ones that are alongside the polytunnel don't seem to fruit like the hedgerow does, which is a shame. Okay, not too many more here. Right, I think I'm ready to rake now. Let's see how we go. So this is pretty easy to rake over the top. I just want to get a surface so I can see what I'm doing. It doesn't need much breaking down because it's very soft. It's got some of my homemade compost in it, and some is just older compost recently dug because I had to remake this bed. And I'm just gonna plant straight into it. Right, so a few things of interest with this planting. So these tagetes were grown in one of the Charles Dowding trays, and I've always been a bit cautious about these because they dry up so easily, but I seem to have succeeded this time because I've kept them well watered, and it makes quite a superb little plug, which I'm pleased about. And I'm just going to dot those along this edge. Oh, and the plan here is that this has always been an area that's been badly infested with bindweed, and I was reliably informed that if I grow tagetes, it is a natural inhibitor of that type of weed. So I think there's no harm in trying that, and I'm going to put a whole row of them along the hedge side of the beds, all the way down these beds. So I think what I'm going to do is plant these and then strip the nets off, and then get a row into each bed and do the weeding and cleaning up as I go along. Right, I'll get these in because they'll dry out. There we go. Natural defences. A row of tagetes all the way along the edge of the beds, hopefully to protect against the ingrowing couch grass. And I've put a double row in both of these where I think probably the most growth exists in the hedgerow. Right, so I'm going to pot some of these Greyhound cabbage into these beds now. I think I'm going for size and ease of maintenance. So 2, 4, 6, I don't know, maybe it lends itself to 8 in that bed and 6 in there. I think I've got one spare little tagetes there, so I'm going to poke him in. They're going so easy. There we go. Yeah, so cabbage time. Right, now people have been asking me why I've kept the cabbage in the hothouse so long. Well, the reason is I wanted really good sturdy plants to put in the ground. And the thing about cabbage is you can bury the stems. So that's going to make for a sturdy cabbage plant once it's in the ground, which will stand upright rather than develop that tiny thin little stem, which results in it keeling over. So that was why I kept them in there for that much longer. Right, let's get those in. So I put the spare ones into this odd bed. It's got beetroot in it, some swede and some Greyhound cabbage. And that's the main Greyhound cabbage bed. I was just working out what everything else is going to be. So sprouts and sprouts. I need to push that soil down really firm. But this is probably the weakest soil I've got, so it makes sense to put sprouts in it. And they're not ready yet, so they could be covered back up. This one I have to think about for a minute. So I'm going to have kale in this because it gets quite tall. I've got the purple Ursula kale and some Toscana. I'm going to put some purple sprouting broccoli in here for next season. So that's still coming along. That leaves me 2 beds for celeriac. So they're still being grown on. I might have to weed that one, but they're going to wait. My runner beans will be going in any moment. And this is going to be all parsnips. So that just leaves me the bed over there, which is also going to be purple sprouting broccoli because it gets lots of shade and I can stake them and give them plenty of room. And that really just gives me 1 bed left, which I think I'm going to end up putting some rocket in and some lettuce and basically having it as a salad bed. So that will fill everything up. And in terms of what's growing in the polytunnel, I don't think I've left anything out, but you know what it's like, you have to check. So what have we got? Runner beans, yes, that's flowers and celeriac spares. All my courgettes and my pumpkins and squash, and they're going up on the top bed. So this is my 2 kale varieties. And I've also got here some broccoli, which is early. So maybe I can put broccoli into that bed rather than all the salad crops and dot the salad crops around. There's squash and pumpkins, bit of coriander, and there are my sprouts. And then below, a few spare onions, all my tomatoes, which I want to get cracking with. Everything else stays in the parsnips, which are going in that long bed, and they're my celeriac that I'm bringing on. So I think I've got it all covered, and it's just at that point where I'm just waiting for plants to get big enough. Probably the next thing to go in will be these runner beans. What I am going to do now is rearrange the polytunnel, make myself some space, lift things up onto the bench that I'm waiting on, and make my space ready to plant my first tomatoes into this bed. And then over here I usually put my pots, which is what I'm going to do, and that will take the balance of the tomatoes. So there's a bit of a reorganisation to do first. Phew, what a job that is. That's probably the third change in the polytunnel this season. But that's got everything that needs ongoing watering up on the top bench with capillary mats underneath it. I've cleared my tomato bed. I've got some weeding to do, as you can see, but that won't take long. And my tomatoes are over here ready for rearrangement. So it's really just cleaning up in here, getting my pots ready for filling, and I'll be good to go for starting to set out my tomatoes. So everything needs a good water, and then that'll be it for today. So I do hope you've enjoyed today's video. It's been warm. If you did, then why not like and subscribe? And if you want my updates every Wednesday, every Sunday, 8 p.m. Good times.